Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Susanna Pareto-Swap. I'm the founder of an all-volunteer nonprofit called Vanguard Culture that works to advance San Diego's creative industries. Vanguard Culture provides quality arts coverage of San Diego's arts and culture community. We produce unforgettable events, usually in person, that bring together creatives from a variety of different industries, and we provide professional development opportunities like this that work to create arts jobs, bring diverse communities together, and inspire creative collaboration. For more information about our programs, please visit vanguardculture.org. This program is part of our Forum Professional Development Series. We're very happy to acknowledge our wonderful program sponsor, Jack Lambolt, for helping us to produce free or low-cost programming in 2020 that provides resources and opportunities to help creatives make a living doing the thing that they love. We could not do this without your support. I'd also like to acknowledge our another wonderful partner. This is the background that you see is the view from Idea One. This is where we have our arts residency, and much of this could not be possible without them as well, so thank you. So let's begin. Thank you for joining us for Moneymaking for Creatives, Surviving and Thriving in Uncertain Times. Today, we will engage in a candid conversation about how to make one's art practice both marketable and profitable, maximizing current resources in a post-COVID-19 world. We will focus on resilience, creativity, and hope as it relates to San Diego's arts and culture community and its potential to thrive and not survive, but thrive during uncertain times. With that, we will actually begin. We hope this conversation brings us all much creative inspiration and hope for the future. It's my pleasure to welcome back to our Forum Professional Development Series, Mr. Shaun Cassidy. Shaun is an international business growth strategist within the digital age with over 30 years of experience in business development. He holds 20 plus years of experience in the fields of sales and marketing, e-commerce, and social media technologies. His clients and partners have been featured in dozens of global sites, including the New York Times, Forbes, Univision, CNN, NBC Latino, the Huffington Post, Le Monde, National Geographic, and the BBC, among others. So with that, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome Mr. Shaun Cassidy. You can unmute yourself, sir. Let me unmute you. There you go.
So, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, great. Wonderful to be with all of you here virtually in our virtual world. I've got people from all the parts of the world. I even have a friend in Ireland there that I know. Okay. So lovely, lovely. Wonderful that you can all join me today. I hope you're having a blessed day in the middle of what we're doing and what we're having. So we're going to have a really great interaction here. You know, I'm a very interactive person, so I believe in collective learning. So I'm really expecting you to bring it on, with your questions, because this is what it is. I'm about a lot of value, bringing a lot of value to people. This is I've been an advisor for this arts nonprofit here for many years. And I've seen it grow immensely. And it's been a very, very impactful, influential arts group now here in San Diego and Southern California. And I've been honored to be just a small part of that, helping that come about. Now, everybody here is going through something that they've never been through before. We're in what I call not just a health crisis, but a paradigm shift on a global scale. And that paradigm shift on a global scale is changing the way we live and work. And now is the time to actually think about how you're pivoting in this time. And meaning by pivoting this time, when I have a business conversation with people, I'm thinking about how do you thrive in the times of uncertainty and the times of great change. Our society has seen great change before. We've seen this before in our history. This is not a new thing. Things that are going on now is not new in the sense of what it is, but it's new to our lives and how we're living right now. So I've been in the virtual space for 10 years. I've been making a living virtually for 10 years. So when COVID hit, it didn't hit me and impact me as much as others, perhaps, right? I was already in the adaptation phase of the virtual business space. My background is I was part of the startup of the internet company called Travelocity. I am an artist. I went to the School of the Arts in Chicago, from Chicago originally. And so my background is very much as an artist that has become a business person. So you're basically talking to a creative person that became a business person. I think like a creative. I understand creatives. I understand the creative process and the need to create and make things, the desire to need and create and make things. So today I'm going to talk about a couple different subjects, right? About business development. And we're going to be able to open up this dialogue after that, because I'm expecting this dialogue to get intensive. Q&As, everything to that. Get as much value as you can out of this workshop. It's being offered to you for that reason. Now, currently what we're looking at right now, as we're in a pandemic, obviously we know what we're in, right? We're in this ability that many of us all over the world, because this is a global conversation I have going on here, are looking at how are we going to make a living in the middle of a crisis, right? So most of us are really looking carefully about what is our online presence, because we can affect, there's some things we can do and some things we can't do, right? Like we can't have big, large events right now. It's just not possible. It's just not practical, is it? It's not practical to have this big, large events, and it's not advised to do so. But that doesn't keep us from increasing our ability to build large networks and large virtual networks. And this is the time to be doing that. So all of us be looking specifically at what is our online presence, how do we use the tools in the virtual space, and how do we monetize those tools to make a living and more money. And this ability also allows us to have an interconnectivity with the world and our general area, our arts community, and the other influencers in the community. So it's really vital that you're actually using that and thinking about tools in a creative manner, not just as a manner that was prior to this crisis, but now as a primary tools in this crisis. So I gave a list to Susanna here of some other areas, which I'll have her share to everybody in the digital space here, which is a lot of people don't normally use, don't know how to use. And a lot of creatives, these are really focused specifically to creative spaces. That's what they are, right? So I'll let her kind of copy some of the ones that we're talking about here. And I'm going to go over each one of them, just mention them to you so that you can be able to copy and paste what's going on here as well, and kind of look at some of these formats maybe you've never used before, or maybe you have and maybe you want to enhance it. But these are some of the times that you should be using these kind of formats. So one of the first ones I'm going to do, and I'll let Susanna kind of see if she can copy it or not, because I gave it directly to her.
I am trying to do so, but it doesn't allow me to copy for some reason. But
Okay.
as a co-host, you should have the ability to send a message to everyone with that information. Can you give that a try?
Yeah, I'll do that. So everyone public, and here we go. Can everybody see that? Yes? Okay. So everybody should be looking at their chat right now, to look specifically at their chat. Now this is something I'm stressing right now, is to look at different formats. And maybe you want to start taking a little bit of notes if you can on this, because you'll probably need to go back to it, or if you can copy it, do a copy it, but take some notes if you'd like, if you're able to. I'm sure we'll share this afterwards too into the space and Facebook and other areas. So you see that. One of the first applications is called Dayflash. And Dayflash is a social platform for sharing photos, videos with the world. Now that, most people don't know how to use it, haven't been using it, but it's specifically in the creative spaces. This space right here is one of these apps you should be using right now in the middle of this as a creative, okay? The next one it is kind of more well-known. There's a couple of them that are more well-known than the others, and one's called ArtStation. And this is a platform for the gaming, filming, media, and entertainment space. Now what's interesting about that is it allows you to interconnect with these high-level people in these industries. And so another area you should be in. Now, one that's a little bit more well-known is called DeviantArt. And that's the world's largest social community for artists and art influentials and enthusiasts. And this allows you to have a complete portfolio online of your work. That's visual work, that's dance work, that's any kind of work you would have that have a complete interactive portfolio at no cost to you, and allow you to build out that portfolio and use that as a link to anywhere else you would do it. Send it by email, send it by anywhere else as a hyperlink. Underneath that, there is an effect called the LinkedIn of creatives, and that's called the Dots. It's a professional network for people that don't wear suits, they call it. But it's really a professional space, like a LinkedIn, for artistic people. Jobs are posted there, employment is posted there, these kind of things. And underneath that and I know these are a lot, that's why it's put into the list, right? I want you to research them as you go. You know, it's a lot. I provide a lot of value. People always say that, but don't think you're going to learn it all in this area. So I'm providing for you to go and research it as well. Another one underneath is called Dribble, which is a self-promotion and social media platform for the digital design space. This is really specifically in the design space. But again, if you're a designer or you are a fashion designer or you're a fashion space, this is a great area to be in. And the other one under that is very well known, called Behance. And Behance was bought by LinkedIn years ago, and it's completely enhanced into the LinkedIn format, but it has a separate area owned by Adobe, right? It's owned set by Adobe now, bought out by Adobe. So the Adobe Suite, a lot of people use here or understand there's Adobe Creative Suite. That's one of the most powerful things that artistic or creative people use is the Adobe Creative Suite. And the Adobe Creative Suite, you know, you can have discounts on that right now in certain areas, but it has all that encompassing area of design aspects through Adobe. Adobe is probably one of the most important creative resources out there for creatives, for development, for making websites, for making graphics, for making that area in that world. Now, underneath that, we get into this world of Instagram and LinkedIn. And I'm very well known for the use of LinkedIn, right? Because I beta tested LinkedIn years ago. So my background is real early e-commerce, you know, Travelocity, real early social media. First social media was LinkedIn. Okay, that's before Facebook existed. So in this area of Instagram right now is on the cusp of taking over e-commerce in the United States. And what people don't really understand is that that's what Facebook's plan is to take over e-commerce in the United States and then globally. So now there is the ability to sell any product or service through an e-commerce space in Instagram without any cost to you. And this cannot be understated why you should not be involved in the use of e-commerce right now, selling a product, services, selling your art, selling anything that you can sell in product services through the Instagram format. Now, LinkedIn in itself, because some people here have worked with me in LinkedIn, some people have not. LinkedIn in itself can do something that none of the other formats or digital spaces can do, point blank. It cannot get you access to corporate spaces or corporate money. There is only one area that can actually do that, and that's called LinkedIn. And LinkedIn can get you access to Sony Entertainment, to any places you can think that are the high corporate spaces. And that's how I mostly use LinkedIn for, and I do advanced LinkedIn training for, is to virtually go inside of corporations, get access to the high level people, and then shift those people to my clients. That's one of the main things I do in LinkedIn. So overall, I went over some kind of value area. And the first aspect of what I'm talking to is online presence. And what I mean by online presence is how you use the formats, how you leverage them, and how you potentially can get work or money out of them. All of them, by the way, have the potential to get you work, but they all collectively get you noticed, which is even more important in the digital space right now. Like how you were getting noticed before and how you're getting noticed now. Because you're already very gifted, very good, but you need more people to see what you do and how you do it, right? So I see that you kind of broke it down. So you kind of broke it down because I kind of put a lot of stuff wording in there. You broke it down for everybody to see. So now they can use that, do research on it, and see how they can utilize it. Because I'm sure you're using maybe the top 3 or top 5, the Facebook, the Instagrams, those, right? And these are some new ones that you've probably never heard of or might not be utilizing. So the second aspect I'm going to talk about is the use of strategic partnerships in the day and age we're in right now. In the creative sectors right now, in the creative world, there's nothing more valuable than how you're going to collaborate with each other. As a creative myself, you know, I know the need to spend time alone making art or making it. And I don't always collaborate with other people doing that. It's a private conversation I'm having with myself. It's the act of creation, the act of being a creative. In the current thing that we're in right now, it's very vitally important that you open up your mind creatively to be strategically partnering with other people. And strategically partnering in 2 ways, I would say right now. The one is the community you like to hang out with and be with at all times. And that be the other creative community, the other writers, the other artists, the other filmmakers, the other dancers, the other people that do this creative world, right? But then there's a second part of that that relates to the business side of it. And that's how you would normally get gigs, right? And work with you. Who would pay you for those gigs? Who would pay you for those things? Those are the people you should be networking with very specifically now. Those are the people that will actually pay you, right? The other people will give you a great emotional ability to collaborate, partner with each other, do workshops with you, all those things, but they may not be able to pay you. And that is an important point that I'm making. So it's beginning to open up your world to outside influences that you may have never considered before. Now, in the big opportunity space right now, in the midst of this crisis that we're in, that's the actual big opportunity. The big opportunity from a global, regional, national, city level is that everyone's virtual right now. Everybody has the ability to be accessed to. And so that comes from the nonprofit to the corporate level, to the NGO level, to the foundation level, you know, this whole level of influence that you really might not have been, because most people, when they're in an industry or an area, they have a circle of influence of people that think like them and act like them. And this is hard in business development to keep promoting to each other, by each other's things. You have to open up new markets to do that. And opening up new markets means new people. We don't sell to products or services to inanimate objects. We sell them to other human beings. So that's begin. And this is where that was the idea of strategic partnerships. Okay. Very, very important right now. You should be always in the state of strategic partnering right now. The other one is the use of how you think about virtual events, virtual trainings, and workshops. I mean, today, right now, we're showing value through a workshop, right? But individually, all of you have that potential. Once you if you feel you're technically challenged, begin to collaborate with people that do have that ability to help you do workshops, trainings, virtual events, virtual conferences, and all these things, either for cost or for awareness of your work, so you could then sell or market your work, right? So you have two angles: paid workshops, paid events, virtually, right? Those areas, e-commerce spaces where you sell or partner with people that already know how to sell things and you're helping them promote it. And then you have the area where it's the awareness area of what you have, therefore it could turn into those people purchasing what you have, right? And those are, I'm always right now in a state of that. I'm in a state of permanent collaboration at all times in the midst of this right now. So I'm talking to people globally, I'm talking regionally, and I'm in a state of always collaborating with people, okay? Now, one of the biggest dilemmas in the arts and creative space is how we went from live entertainment to our current status, right? Our live spaces, live dance, live gigs, live music, live areas, and how we're shifting right now to see what we're gonna be able to do with that. Now, I'm watching the corporate sectors very carefully, and the corporate entertainment sector very carefully. I'm talking to people in LA, I'm talking to people that are leaders in this area, and I'm seeing where they're pivoting. And what I mean by that is pivoting. What are they gonna do? Where are they gonna shift, right? And even in the midst of this crisis right now, right, as I mentioned to Susanna, Netflix became more valuable than oil companies. Everybody knows that, right? Netflix is now more valuable than oil, okay? Anybody thought that would occur? That's amazing, unbelievable development. And they have a certain way they make money, we understand, but that doesn't mean entertainment's definitely not going away. I mean, they're making mass fortunes. And all the tech sector is making, many of the tech sectors making mass fortunes right now. So that doesn't mean that we're just in a depression, we're also in a paradigm shift, complete paradigm shift. It's going somewhere completely different. It's a new world, okay? And the entertainment and business side of it are controlled through the investment side of it. And the investment side of that is looking specifically at virtual reality, and they're looking at how they're gonna interact into live entertainment through virtual reality. That includes Hollywood, that includes the movie sectors, that includes all that area. So this is the time for you to think about how you create your own interactive experiences within the space you own an area. Meaning you can make your own space inside of your condo, your house, whatever, and begin to make an area where you have your own podcast, your own entertainment space, we are all media empires now, and now you have to think of yourself as a media empire yourself, and that's why you're using the media spaces to project your work out to people. You have that ability directly from your home to do that. Okay. Now, the other area I'm going to begin to get into, the idea is, how do you use access to people to get work? Now, this is an interesting one that most people are not considering right now, is the value of your network and the value of who you know, and how you tell people about what you have and who you know. As I'm studying the creative sectors, you're seeing a lot of people saying, oh, I'm going to make masks, and I'm going to sell masks because I'm a creative and I make art. And I think that's great, but I don't know how long that's going to last. Even the corporate sectors seem to be taking that over. I'm going to make that. Corporate says, I'm going to make that. They're using it as a PR move. So what's interesting, I think, in this sense, is that everybody needs to be considering and understanding they need to have an e-commerce site. They need to be thinking about two things: e-learning and e-commerce, right? At all times. How can you teach people things about what you do? Collaborate with people that teach people things about what you do in the e-learning space. And how do you sell products and services online of what you have and what you do? This one right here puts a lot of people in a knowledge area of saying, I don't understand how to do it, or I don't understand to implement it. And that's when you really have to use networks to do that. And you have to look at the people that already have a successful, shop site, already have those, and they're in your back door. They're just not in your network right now because you're not thinking of reaching out to them, but they're in your back door and they know what you're going through. And if you reach out to them, they will give you the specific hardcore advice about how to implement, right? So we're in a great learning time because the tools are there. The implementation of the tools are not there. And in the creative sector, there's a reluctance to completely embrace the tools because you want to be making art, not doing that. That's the part where you said, I wish I had the money to hire somebody to do all that. And what I'm saying right now is that you need to become good at that because it's the future economy of the world. In post-COVID-19 world, the integration between experiential spaces and virtual money will merge. We're not getting rid of the live entertainment space. It's not going away, but it's going to begin to specialize, compartmentalize into experiential experiences. So you have two things being sold: products and services, which will increasingly be sold in the online spaces. Like you're seeing what's happening with delivering of services. The retail sector is collapsing. We all can see that happening. I've been saying that for 8 years that it's coming. I've been reminding everybody it's coming, okay? And then you have the other space, which is experiential. And this is where the arts and creative space gets to control and own it. We want to have beautiful experiences. We want to have the arts and culture because that's what's the most important thing. Prior to the pandemic, there was a very interesting conversation in Asia between Elon Musk and the founder of Alibaba. People might know who Alibaba is. It's the Amazon of China. And it makes like 4 times what Amazon makes. It's a massive, huge company. And their dialogue was about 2 things. It was about automation. And Elon Musk said that automation is the evil. Robots are the evil of the world. It will kill mankind. And then the founder of Alibaba said, well, man made robots, so man can control robots. But they both, and then at the end they said, and here's what's the magic thing of being creative. They said the most valuable work in the future will be the creative sector. The people that can make you feel. Robots cannot make you feel, cannot make you cry, cannot touch you. They cannot touch you in an emotional way. Only the human experience can do that. And they both agreed that it would be the single most valuable work of our lives that would be. And those are the single most valuable people in business and work. So you're into something. Remember, if you are a creative right now, your future is greater than you think, right? But you do need to adapt carefully to how to use the tools and to implement the tools. So at this point, I'm going to open this up to a Q&A. And I look forward to talking to all of you.
Thank you. I'm going to just give you guys a little bit of sort of rules or guidelines about how to interact. You are welcome to submit your questions here on the chat box. Take my glasses off. Through the chat box, or you can unmute yourself, put yourself on camera and go ahead and engage. I know you have a lot of questions. It's okay if you're specific about your specific industry and what you do. And I would say, you know, I've worked with Shaun for 5 years or so now, I think. And truly, if you see Vanguard Culture as a success and the incredible momentum that we've had in the last few years, it's been largely because of his advice and guidance and mentorship. So be specific about your actual needs and your actual limitations as you perceive them. And don't be afraid to engage. This should be a conversation. So go ahead and give us what you got. Let's see.
Hi guys. Hey Shaun, this is Fearfra from Ireland. How you doing?
Lovely to see you.
Yeah, you too. You're looking good. Thanks, Susanna. Shaun, thank you for your presentation. It's great as always. And I'm in the process of producing a podcast, which will be a history and mythology podcast with some development issues discussed as well. I'd like to market it to the market in the United States and other markets, but I'd like to market it at people who other companies in Ireland would like to expand their market into. So I'd like to design a strategy for identifying markets where it would be financially it would be a good idea to market my podcast, build a following, and then go to an Irish company and say, would you like to advertise on our podcast? So I'm hoping to develop a strategy for doing that. So a company, for example, might be Kerrygold in Ireland. They sell butter around the world. I'd like to look at what markets they're going to expand into or they're looking to expand into, and then perhaps look to see can I market my podcast in those same markets, get a following, and go to Kerrygold with an offer of an advertising space. Do you think this is a good strategy? And have you any thoughts on that?
The three steps. Okay, 3 steps. First step is always having good content and who you're going to interview. Right. The second step is the implementation of the software, the technology. The third step is the sponsorship level. And that is specifically what you have to realize in the corporate space. There are specialized people in the partnership space in all corporations. Their job is to actually do specifically strategic partnership. That's exactly what their job is to do. Okay. So their job is actually to give away money. The reason they're there to give alignment or to give away money is for tax reasons. Okay. So there's 2 reasons, right? They want to look good to the community. They want to be used as a PR tool and look very good to the world. The second reason is that if they're bringing in money, they need to shelter the money through tax systems. So the reason that money sits there is because it's intentionally meant so that they don't have to pay heavy tax on the money. So if they give the money to charity or they give the money to your resources or your podcast, they don't have to pay specific targeted taxes on it. That's very true in the US, but it's also true in Ireland. It's also true in most of Europe as well. So what I'm saying is in that very well-known Irish company, you need to be targeting specifically who is partnership, right? Who is the corporate partnership? Who is the community partnership level? Then that's the person you're going to be approaching and pitching the podcast to. Those 3 steps. But there's a lot of dialogue to have more on that. But I think initially that's the way I can answer the question in the group.
Thank you.
I have a question from Stuart. He says, if we begin selling via online, which is very different from selling via someone else's business, such as a store, do I need to get a license, work with local government? Do I need an accountant, a tax professional, etc.? What are the guidelines there?
It's getting, they're going to start regulating online sales completely. But what I recommend is you use a third party right now, like Shopify or something like that. And those third parties actually assist you with that process. They report it back to you. I've done this, I've got this many sales. The only thing about them is some of them take a small portion of your sales, but that means they have the back end, but they're also going to give you the report that you can use for taxes. So that way you can do that. Until you get very efficient, I recommend you use one of the third parties to do that. And they will provide that to you as you make sales.
Other than Shopify, do you have other suggestions of third party that do that similar service?
Obviously, Amazon does the same thing in the back end on that. There's quite a many. I think if you could just Google, making my own e-commerce site right now, you can kind of research the top 10. I would do the top 10 e-commerce sites right now because there's so many. There's so many out there. And I would also Google, say, for creatives, right? Because there's even targeted ones for creatives. So they're moving very fast right now. It would be too many for me to list right now, but I would mention those two, which is Shopify and Amazon, obviously.
Thank you. Somebody just texted me crowdfunding. I'm not sure what the question is.
Okay.
Possibly,
all right.
Is it a good idea, or?
Yeah. I've heard a lot about this in the creative sector, the use of crowdfunding. And I think it's a part of the toolbox. It's a part of the toolbox, not the entire toolbox, but it's part of the toolbox. And I think that what's interesting of the crowdfunding area is, again, it's how and you reach the right people through crowdfunding. So you need to have that network to reach the right people. So if you're crowdfunding and you're sending it to 12 people, you're going to get a certain result from 12 people. If you're sending it to 12, corporate vice presidents, you're also going to get a different reaction than if you are sending it to 12 people that are a plumber, right? Like you see what I mean by that, right? So it has the value of the network becomes really important of building the network up before you go into crowdfunding. So spend some time building a quality network and then hit the crowdfunder that way.
Thank you. I have another question from Andrew. He says, Shaun, I work and help support about 100 different arts and culture focused groups. I am curious about your thoughts on hosting a consistent or unified user experience for engaging with arts and culture and selling related products and / accepting donations through that platform.
Well, donations areas have a lot to do with the nonprofit sector versus the business sector, because nonprofit sector can use that in certain tax reasons versus the for-profit space, right? For-profit space is also a little different between the two. So we'd have to clarify whether or not it's a mixed area you're working in or not. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'll let you ask. Go ahead, Andrew.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can jump on here. There we go. And thanks for doing this. This is a great discussion. Yeah, so I help work. I think it might be in a kind of unique situation. I think Susanna might have a similar experience with what she does, but I really help support a lot of these small groups, and they're independent, small, or sole proprietors making their own work. But I help kind of create the framework to present them to the public virtually. And oftentimes I get critiques that the user experience is haphazard. They have to go to this network to see that, another network, social network to see this. There's logins, passwords, and folks kind of get frustrated when they want to go see like 3 or 4 things or interact with these folks, and they're all over the web. And then similarly, some of these groups say, well, I want to sell stuff, but they're a sole proprietor, and so they haven't built up their business, e-sales business prior to COVID. And so now I'm wrestling with, well, can I help provide some kind of framework that helps them? I'm not necessarily trying to collect any sales for them or take any proceeds, but I want to help them accept money to sell their product, I guess. So does that help explain?
Yeah, that's a wonderful opportunity you're in. I mean, the thing of what you're talking about is how you develop a hub. And really, that's really important. When I was at Travelocity itself doesn't sell anything. It's a hub. It made agreements with all these third parties in travel, and then it took a piece of the action. It said for $10 for every hotel booked. It tends to what, right? So that's when they ended up making millions and billions of dollars just as a hub, right? A hub space is a really, really important thing that we've discussed right now in the business sector. Now, I think putting a hub area together makes a lot of sense. But you have to form it as a collective. And I think the use of collectives are very important because you have collective knowledge, which you can share. Everybody starts sharing collective knowledge together. to help each other. How do I do that? How do I, start working these e-commerce workshops steadily for the community, but organize them into this idea of bringing in. And then you can also hook into e-commerce people or companies in that level, especially LinkedIn is good for that, where you can hook into Shopify, Amazon, and they'll speak. They'll come out because they say, oh, you might buy my product. So they'll speak for you for free. I mean, completely for free. They'll tell them how to do it, how to get involved, how to be in a partner level. Because if they think they're going to get new clients, they'll become, you could interview them specifically, either on a podcast or in Zoom right now, and you can bring that as a resource to your collective. So what I'm saying right now is you're in effect forming a collective, and then that becomes a collective mind and collective learning. Now, the other part of that is like, so each person would say best practices for selling e-commerce. This is my best practice. Interesting after this right now is like this transparency has to occur for people to understand what's going on. Post-COVID, post-crisis, you could have this kind of ego and saying, I have knowledge that you do not have. But if you really want to be a leader right now, you're going to have to become transparent on your knowledge. I mean, that means you want to empower a lot of people. So you have this opportunity with this collective to empower a mass amount of people. So I would be putting this specifically into formats you can use in the free area. Obviously, there's the YouTubes and the video. Video is actually more powerful in that way right now, hooking that into the video space. So I think what you need to be looking at is whether it's a Vimeo or a YouTube channel that specifically goes into collective learning and collective organization business in the business creative sector, so that you're everybody's part of that YouTube channel, or you need a centralized area for them to go.
Thank you. Feel free to jump back in later if you have follow-up questions. Scott has had his hand up for a little bit, so go ahead and unmute yourself, sir, or I can do that for you.
No, I did. Just have some questions. I just started. I'm an artist, but I'm also in business and a speaker as well. I just had a question of getting sponsorship or getting a prize winning or setting yourself up for art. Is there a local San Diego ways that we can get money from donations or something like that for our art? Thank you. And by the way, thank you, you two, and everybody for doing this. Appreciate it.
I'm going to let Susanna talk a little bit about that before I talk. Yeah.
Okay, so your question was about whether or not there were organizations giving relief funding for artists at this time. There actually are, but they are, well, the ones that I am aware of are focusing on funding existing nonprofits. So in that space, you may need to align yourself with an existing nonprofit. The reason for that is because the relief funding, the one that specifically that I happen to be on the steering committee for is the San Diego Arts and Culture Challenge. And, it's really important. We were able to pull together $1.25 million in about a month. It was an incredible feat, pulled together by a lot of, creative industry leaders that I highly respect. And seeing the amount of work that took place in order to make that effort happen was really extraordinary. And it was important that they be an existing nonprofit because we were able to make sure that they would be accountable, that they have a structure that will hold them accountable for how they will be implementing the money. I think that would probably be the best choice, is to try to align yourself with a nonprofit that aligns with your vision, with your specific craft, and see if there are ways that you can work together, because those are the organizations receiving funding right now.
I'll do a follow-up on that. I want to talk a little bit about business law. It's kind of an odd world to talk about, but I'm going to specifically talk about foundations, right? By law, foundations that are sitting with lots and lots of money in their foundation right now, they have to spend 5% of that by law. They can hold by 95% of that, even in an emergency or crisis, but by law, they have to spend 5%. And they have to show that in their taxes to do that. So the art foundation space right now, even just throughout San Diego or Southern California, has an ability to be tapped for the 5%. Even if they're holding back 95% because they have uncertainty or not, but they may not be holding back. I'm saying by law, they have to spend it. They have no choice. they have to spend it. Okay, so what I mean by that is begin to do that hardcore research about the art foundation space in the California area or even globally. I know New York has just opened up a real high level area for all of New York City artistic creative areas, also for funding. But you know, they're targeting probably just the New York area. So that's happening as well. But the art foundation space right here by law has to spend the 5%. Okay, so yeah, so I hope that was helpful. Did that answer all of your questions there, Scott? Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So a question from Jaron, any recommendations on where to start if we want to make our own website? I mean, there are hundreds of them, but which ones have you found to be the easiest to use? And he's specifically saying, you know, he's not tech savvy, so, you know, help.
Yeah. Well, the creatives people like Wix.com. A lot of people like Wix. You know, they like that for using that for the creative sectors. Again, there's so many options on that. I think the Adobe Suite area, you know, reaching out to people in the Adobe Suite area would be good for that too. But there's so many options for that. I think Wix.com is pretty easy to use, and it's pretty interactive. You know, the way I think of websites is interesting, right? Because I've been in the online space for a long time. I think of websites as beautiful brochures until they have e-commerce on them. Then there's an ROI to a website design. And I shouldn't say there's anybody who are website designers. I'm not trying to shoot you in the foot with this one. But what I'm trying to say is it's a beautiful, you spend money to make a beautiful brochure online, but you only get money back if you sell off the website, right? You only get money back from that investment if you sell off the website. So that's really the important part. I think having a beautiful brochure, well, that looks really good, but interconnecting it to an e-commerce format is the most important part of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. So Fat Cow is good and uses Weebly Web Builder, which is a lot easier than WordPress. That's according to Evan.
Yeah, I think that's good to put that question out to everybody.
Yeah, it's
like
expensive. And
I think that's what I mean by collective learning. There's so many options. Weebly is, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, yeah. There's just so many options, but I think that's like collective learning when people ask it. Yeah, so it's like as a collective, that's a great question to ask everybody.
And someone else mentioned GoDaddy is rather easy as well. There's a lot of them at this point. You know, everyone has their website now, and you really shouldn't feel daunted by it. Really give it a try. They're designed to be user-friendly now, so it's absolutely worth it. Yeah,
and all these companies, by the way, are heavily starting investing in the e-commerce side. Even if they're just doing domains now, they're saying you can do e-commerce with them too.
Okay, thank you. We have another question. How would you suggest to simultaneously reach audiences from different cultures? Does that mean different countries or different cultures inside of the United States?
Let me get specific. Who asked that question? Yeah.
See, example, English and Spanish speakers.
Okay.
So
who asked that question? Okay.
Yeah. You're great at this one. This is your thing.
Okay. Okay. So Daniela, give me specifics. More specifics. Did Danielle ask that? She's muted. She's muted. Yeah.
Here, why don't you?
Hi. Yeah, my question is, for example, I'm Colombian, so this is a whole new word for me, and I'm learning English. This is a crazy journey for me, and I would like to start to make my own art, but I mean, for me, it's like it's not the same if I talk to, I don't know if I said in the correct word, like my people, you know, the Latin people.
Your peeps,
in Spanish,
right?
Because it's not the same way to talk. I mean, we don't use the same, how to say, like words. And so I don't want to, for example, if I do something related with art, I don't want to talk just in Spanish or just in English. I would like to be able to talk for both audience, sending the same message. I don't know if I'm using the correct words to express myself. You know what I'm saying? Like
I think you know
that connection with both.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you want to
go ahead. Yeah, I'll let you talk first, and then I'll go off on this one. Okay.
Yeah, I know this is absolutely your space, so I know you have a lot to say on this. So you know, there are several websites that have a Spanish and English or other languages translation, right? And so it's just a category that they pick off of your website when they switch over to the Spanish, if that's where they feel more comfortable, and then they switch over back to the English. They just put a little flag, you know, according to what you're speaking. So that's the simple answer, but I know that Shaun, you can hit this much harder.
Yeah, this is a big question in the cultural area. So strategic partnerships are going to be really vital to what you're saying. So the first thing you're going to do is start really researching about the bilingual and Spanish speaking multicultural space that are in the blogosphere, also in the podcast sphere. And these are going to become your strategic partners to launch. So you want to actually start making a list and connecting, having dialogues with all of them, because they're already specializing in that arena. You get it? They already are successful in that arena, understand that arena, but they right now would like to partner with people just like everybody else. So, you know, choose 3 or 4 bloggers, choose 3 or 4 podcasters, and then begin to look about how they are running their business, because you need to think of yourself as a media person just like they are, because you'll need to be projecting your art in a media way, even if it's in multiple languages or different cultural aspects. Actually, my personal opinion is you are at a great advantage that you don't maybe always realize the advantage you have by being multicultural, by being multilingual. That means you can sell to multiple markets and have multiple awarenesses. Those people that have that ability have somewhat of a global business area that they're not considering. Now, you're from Colombia. I mean, I know that there are high-level business spaces in Colombia. I know that there are high-level people that are doing business development in Colombia. I know that there are people doing web design there. There are people doing all kinds of things in Colombia, you know, because I'm a global traveler. I'm a world traveler. I'm a global thinker. There's huge advantages for you by interconnecting yourself into the business community there, bringing that business community up to you as being advisors, assisters, or sponsorship to what you're doing. That includes the creative community, but also includes the business community in Colombia. So you have to just make sure who you're aligning with and who you're carefully aligning with. But I think, first of all, you might be able to align with the podcasters there and also the bloggers there. And that would allow you to begin to make a strategy of how, by looking at them, about how you would present yourself. And that's the reason you're strategically aligning. So you can align your own to see that's successful, and they're doing it successfully. So how can I utilize that?
Did that help?
Yeah. I mean, my question is for the same topics that we are talking about, that we cannot be close in this moment. And for example, my country is far away, and I just not want to be focused in just Colombia. You know, it's like Mexico, Argentina, a lot of people that they
total
want
Latino.
to be involved on it.
Yeah, it's
so
huge.
It will be super cool.
There, when what I've just said, it exists there too. The blogosphere exists in all of Latin America, and it exists in the podcast if you're on all of Latin America. So if the Latin American market is very interesting to you, I mean, there's people other here that are interested in the Latin American market as well and are knowledgeable in the Latin American market. You need to go out to the influence space, but the U.S. Latino market is a bi-national, bicultural market, and it's a big market. I mean, it's a huge market, right? But it's very diverse. And when I mention that right now, I know for one area I would target is Miami for you. I would go, you know, because they're controlling the Latino space in media. So who are the blogospheres you can collaborate with in Miami right now?
So would you suggest just not use one platform, just many, like LinkedIn or maybe your podcast, and maybe to reach different kind of audience, to start to build my own like list?
In the Latin American, you know, different parts of the world have different adaptation levels in the social spaces. You know, Latin America, you know, for example, Snapchat, WhatsApp is heavily used in Latin America. It's also heavily used in Europe. You know, it's not as adapted here because Facebook came first, and then there's areas over there. So yeah, I think, you know, by talking to your friends and family back there, what everybody's using, you know, you can tell what everybody's using. But do I think you should put all your eggs in that basket?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. So Michael's getting over there. That's good, Michael. So you put all your eggs in that basket, right? I'm saying do a diversity. Yeah, do a diversity of networks. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have another question. What formats do you recommend? Let's see, one second. what formats do you recommend for fashion to get your products out there? You mentioned Dribbble.
Yeah, I think Dribbble is a good area out there. Dribbble is a good area for fashion, but I think what you need to be looking at specifically for business side of it is the LinkedIn side in fashion. So the area which you want to go after is the fashion corporate space, and that means the fashion arena, fashion studio space, and access to all the fashion business side. LinkedIn is really good for that.
I'd like for you to talk a little bit about LinkedIn, since that is your Michael. Did you have a question for us? So, you know, you keep popping in and out.
Comment on the multicultural.
Okay, go ahead.
The young lady from Colombia. I was going to share. I've known Shaun for, I guess, probably 20 years now, but about 15 years ago, I came to Shaun with a similar question. I'm a historian, and I write books about Mexico, about the United States, and about Ireland. And I was wondering how to get these three audiences together. And one of the best suggestions that Shaun gave me, and I followed through on, was to make friends with and help promote without cost other people who wrote books on Ireland, or other people who wrote books on Mexico, other people who wrote books on history of the United States, to promote their work on my sites. And I started doing that. And what happened as a result was, over the course of the year, I had 17,000, then 30,000 followers on all these various sites of mine, and people were promoting my work as well. So one of the things that Shaun taught me, and I think it's a great lesson, is help others who are doing the same kind of work that you are doing, whether it's in Colombia or the United States. And at some point, the windfall will profit you as well. You know, in helping others, you know, without expectation, you know, you just do it because you like their work, obviously, and you think they deserve your support. But without any provocation on my part, these people just generously over the years have responded and helped promote my work.
I can second that. Do you, Shaun, I'd love for you to just talk about your philosophy a little bit. And I know that you follow Wallace Wattles, and you know, in the creative space, it's very easy. It's very easy in the creative space to have this sort of competitive mindset, right? To think, well, I'm a visual artist and that's a visual artist, and therefore their success is taking away from my success, or I'm an arts organization that does something similar. And San Diego has had that tendency. I think there's been a shift in the last couple of years where it's become more collaborative, but it still permeates our subconscious. We don't want to share, you know, resources or lists or contacts or donors, my goodness, you know. But what we don't realize, and this has always been my way to see things, is, you know, their success is your success. What you want is to have a lot of San Diegans, a lot of people in our community that support the arts in general. We want them to go to other galleries. We want them to go see other shows. We want them to do that because they are being, you know, culturally enhanced, and they'll become much more supportive of your industry in general, and want to continue patronizing your spaces and purchasing your work. When you go into this competitive mindset, it does quite the opposite, right? You create animosity between you and other organizations. And so that's been a philosophy that I sort of felt instinctively, and I've always been, you know, an advocate for the arts for a long time now. 20 years I've been doing this. And then when I met you, you just reaffirmed this belief system in just living a life of service to others. And so I'd like for you to just talk about that a little bit.
Well, I come from the philosophy, there's the idea of give a man a fish and he eats for a day. You teach a man how to fish and he eats forever, right? So spiritually and also ethically, I believe I have the responsibility to end the suffering of people. If if I understand what suffering is, and suffering is the lack of abundance in that life, or life of mental, trapped in the mental mind of lack of abundancy. So it's really in the mental mind. It's not in the physical mind. It's not in the physical reality. It's in the mental trap of the mind. And what I mean by that is that in order to train people or work with people, that the hunger ends, the pain ends, won't be done with one fish. It will be done with training people and teaching people how to fish. That would end the pain. That's the ethical right things to do. So you ask where are my ethical areas. Along the way, when the internet got invented and the e-commerce and the social space got invented, you start to see mass amount of people making these huge, new billionaires, new fortunes being made, but they were being made off the individual people around the world. Like everybody said, I'm going to buy from Amazon. I'm going to buy from that, right? And they started to make these mega companies that we live in right now through that process of monetizing lots and lots of people, right? So in the positive area, that was called the sharing economy. And it said, if you like what I like, you should buy what I like. And that's where you were seeing it put on social media. I'm buying this, so you should buy that. I recommend you have that, so you should have that. And somewhere along the area, this area called the sharing economy that came along into our economic spaces. And the sharing economy began to disrupt every other business idea in the world, really, what happened. And that's because we were sharing information so fast, so much through social and internet spaces that it was affecting how things were bought, how they were sold, and what we thought were good or bad, right? And in the deeper area of what you're talking about, in the collaborative area, is there's a sense of lack when you don't know how to control or get access to people or systems, the markets, we describe them, right? But it's got so sophisticated right now that the markets that we talk about, there's a health market, right? There's a corporate market. There's different markets that have different businesses going on. The biopharmaceutical, the biotech in California, San Diego is a huge market right now. They're not losing money. They're making large money right now. They're getting largely invested. They're actually making quite a lot of money in the middle of this, okay? So when you look to do the pivot, you're looking at this philosophy of how do you share and empower other people. And this is really a law of wealth. It is a law of wealth and abundance. The greater you help others, the more you will be okay. This is a very hard thing to accept generally until you take it to heart. And then when you do take it to heart, you will realize you will, by helping others, be helped.
That's beautiful. And I really can absolutely attest to that. We've benefited so much from implementing that philosophy in our organization in the last few years. And, we started as this all volunteer nonprofit in this digital space. And we started with about 1,000 contacts. Now we're at over 15,000 subscribers. We're getting about 10,000 hits a month on our website. It's been just an incredible journey in such a short period of time. And I feel like through these types of programs, we're able to offer some support to the community that we so love. And I really appreciate your input here. Go ahead. I was just going to move on to another question. Okay, so we have a couple of questions. So what's the best place for fine art photography, if you know?
Well, in that list, I did give an area specifically in the design space, one that we had. That's a really good area for photography space. But there are a couple areas that just help photography sell of photography. But I would begin to research them carefully to see if they align carefully with you in the photo space. When you look at the top corporations that are digital corporations, you should be getting into their partnership levels and asking them that exact question. That's exactly what you're doing. Because right now, as I speak and I say it, literally their mergers are happening this fast. They're buying out companies this fast, right? So as I say it, it could shift. So I kind of preface it in that way, right? If I say it, it could be shift. Buyouts are hitting all over the place right now. Mergers and buyouts are hitting.
Yeah. Okay, another question. Before the pandemic, I was working on launching a luxury line of glass items. I'm now worried about working with photographers, models with new safety issues, as well as how to market with the cancellations of runway shows, weddings, galas, etc.
This is where you're looking at specifically how you're going to use your space as a gallery presentation space in your own physical spaces. So you're going to be looking to invest in that idea of presenting your work in a virtual way and doing virtual interviews with other people with your work from your home or from a physical office space that you're controlling, which you're going to have to use the technology to do that. And that means technology of a podcast, technology of the Zoom or the live promotions that you're going to be doing through live social spaces. So it has to be increased in that. And then all that has to be hooked to an e-commerce site. So every time you promote, it's being linked off to an area where you buy. You promote, then tell people how to buy. Promote, and tell people how to buy.
And I should mention too, Fashion Week San Diego is already launching virtual runway shows, and they're already enlisting models and all of that. So your participation could be as easy as connecting with the now new executive director of Fashion Week and reaching out saying you have these products, model them yourself if you can, and show some, nicely done photography, and then send them over to her for consideration. And there are lots of other folks. If you follow fashion blogs, you should probably sign on to subscribe to a bunch of fashion blogs that exist out there for the fashion industry, and start reaching out to those people directly and saying, this is what I have. First, get some beautiful photos of your work. That can be done with distancing. You can hire a photographer to do that in a distanced environment in your backyard or under a controlled lighting environment that makes sense. And then send those images or videos over to those people as promotional.
That's being done quite regularly right now, actually. What you're mentioning, it's being done quite regularly.
Another comment, Scott says, Saatchi Art, you're probably familiar with it, SAATCHI art.com and Etsy.com are great places to have photos and all types of media. Okay, do we have more questions? Jen, you unmuted yourself. Did you want to jump in? Chef? No? Okay. Okay. She muted herself back on. Do we have any other questions or comments? This is the place to be specific about your questions. Tell us what you're working on. Tell us what your limitations are, what specific problems are. The one thing that I can say is that Shaun truly is a master at this, is sort of understanding from a global perspective and then zoning down into your particular industry. So we've got two people that just unmuted themselves. I have Chef Jen and Starla. Were you going to jump in, Jen, after all, or?
Yes, sorry, I just didn't want to interrupt anybody.
It's okay.
So I, prior to Corona, had a personal chef business, and I am in the process right now of transitioning into virtual cooking classes and possibly creating a cookbook. And I'm trying to kind of understand the sales and marketing component that comes with creating stuff in an online space. Like, I've always had clients that either referred me or honestly, I use Yelp and social media and my website as ways to promote my in-person services. And now I'm trying to understand, when going into this larger space of a virtual world, what are really good marketing and promotional techniques for really going outside your state, outside your local market, and really incorporating much more?
That's a big question, but I'll try to cover it, in this spectrum, The use of video right now can't be underestimated, right? The use of how you do video communications right now and use of the applications to do video are very, very important. A long time ago, there was this thing called QVC, right? And somewhere along the way, they started making fortunes by selling products and just talking about them. It's a crazy little thing, right? But now what you're seeing is that ability for you to do the same, but on your own area. But as a chef, you have a great advantage because you need to be targeting to people that really would like to make their own recipes and foods. And it's a huge opportunity right now in the virtual chef space. But it begins to actually looking at who are you targeting, right? Who exactly are you targeting for your services? This is where it gets really important. So you need to really like think of these markets, maybe 3 or 4 markets. And then by thinking of the 3 or 4 markets you would like to market into, this allows you to rely on this strategy to those individual markets, right? And those individual markets will have influencers in those markets. So those are the first people you're going to reach out to, and you're going to begin to ask them. That includes people in product spaces for food. That includes people in areas about what you buy as a chef or what you would use as a chef. Those people would be able to be ones that have great potential sponsorship for you, right? The people that everything you need to buy as a chef is a potential sponsor, right? Everything you need to buy, including the clothes, to the aspect of food, everything you need to buy as a chef is a potential sponsor, because most of those things are in some ways are hooked to a corporation or a company.
That's a really, really good point. I know that I had thought of sponsorship, and it was one of those kind of like, of course, everyone wants to think of someone paying them to do their work. But beyond that, who do you find as a sponsor? And that makes total sense that it could be everything from the tomatoes that you use to the pots and pans.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's a big opportunity, actually. You've got a really big opportunity now.
You're basically creating commercials for those products.
Yeah.
And then they are able to share it with their audiences. And as long as you give credit where credit is due on the video, they would be, and tag them and all of that through social media and everything, and make sure that you email them directly with the end product. You know, they are more inclined to support you in the future.
Yeah, and the big thing about in the marketing area is to be authentic about that. You don't need to be, hokey or fake. I'm pushing a product. You need to believe in it. Something I would use, something I would buy. Yeah, the authenticity is very, very important. People can tell transparently whether or not you're making something up.
Yeah, I taught cooking classes for years, and I worked for Sur La Table for a little while. And, they had certain sales goals that they wanted you to meet with the products that they sold in the store. And you could tell very quickly what were products that a chef actually enjoyed using and what were products they were just hawking to get rid of.
Exactly. Yeah. And people, that's a really interesting thing about selling. In general, and I always kind of say this, you need 3 things in life, this basic aspect of life. I say it a lot when I talk. I said, you need water. They say these are the things that doctors say will kill you, right? You need to drink water, and you need to have healthy water, and you need to have healthy food, and you need to have maybe safe shelter over your head, safe shelter, these basic needs of life. And outside of that, you begin to understand most everything outside of that is a brand that's being sold to you. It's a brand product. Your computer's a brand, your clothing's a brand, your shoes are a brand. Even the food that we buy in some ways is branded, because when you go to the very high-end grocery store versus the economy grocery store, that tomato is that there, it's that there. It's still a tomato, but it's a lot more expensive in that area than it is over here, but it's still a tomato, right? So it's like there is a part of that in marketing, food marketing, obviously.
And it's ironic that you put it that way, because my brain never put it in, but I've always considered myself a branded product because I sell myself as more expensive than some of the other products. So now I just need to transition that over. Thank you. Thank you for making me think.
Thank you. Starla, you had unmuted yourself. Did you have a question?
I have a conglomerate of questions that you hopefully just answer in once. My thing is social entrepreneurship, but I like to use imagery in the work that I do. My daughter, my granddaughter, and I do multi-generational women empowerment. And so we have books that we sell, one of which is called I Am My Own Self-Validation. Specifically, I like to label myself as a global teacher of self-love because it fits everything else that I do. And the I Am My Own Self-Validation is a way that we help people see their value and their worth. At this time, however, my other area is understanding racism and sexism and transcending it. And so I'm trying to figure out how to market all that together to address some of the issues that I see as our major social problems of today. And one of which is how to love ourselves, how to see ourselves in each other, and how to transcend some of the miseducation that we've been given through imagery. All that saying, my first thing that I have created is called Sun Kisses, which is a multi-generational coloring book, children, adults, etc. It's in English, Spanish, and French. And I want to know, how can I market myself and my products in a way to help best serve humanity?
Oh, that was beautiful. And you even put a plug in for your book. I love that. That was awesome. Everybody should learn from that plug right there. That was great. So it's like being be unselfish, you know, it's not being selfish. Tell everybody what you have and what you do, you know.
Thank you for that, because that's really hard for me to do. So
I tell everybody, don't be afraid to do that. Yeah, a lot of people are afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to do that. That's wonderful. I think you have a huge opportunity, right, in the middle of what's going on. I mean, we have innovation going on. At the same time, we have a social shift going on, maybe even a social movement going on, right? But that area, I would say we are in a social movement as well as an innovation movement right now in the middle of the pandemic, right? So very, very important time in our country and in our world. And you have the opportunity to lead on that with your voice. So that's a blessing. And sometimes we need leaders, right? Like you. Leaders like you are being asked to speak up, to come forward right now in the time of need. So your leadership is
honest. Some of my frustration right now is we tend to be doing for our future in addressing these issues the same thing we did in the past. And then in the past, they clearly haven't worked, or we wouldn't be here right now. So do you have a suggestion on how I can make more people aware of what it is that I do? I've actually created a class years ago called the Psychohistory of Racism and Sexism, but most people just see me as love. I love that, but the reality is love will help heal this divide between us. And I know how to do it in a way to connect it to understanding racism and sexism.
Okay, so these are the three things I'm going to be able to give you in this time period that we have. One, it's kind of reinforcing what has been said a little bit before, and that's to open up the strategic partnership level right now. The whole area right now of this dialogue is going on. There's very influential, significant people in the community talking about this kind of issue that you're talking about as well, but they're not doing what you're doing. They may be a blogger, they may be a podcaster, they may be a celebrity, they may be somebody really talking about that, and there may be a corporation that is specifically targeting about that. These are the areas you need to be reaching out to and telling your story to, and see how you can collaborate with them and see how they can share your things on their stuff and you can promote their things on your stuff, so that your ability is to use a cross-marketing area. The social space is very powerful for that. Video social space is very powerful. The podcasting area is very powerful for that. So it's about really making a team around you, right? Like a strategic team around you that puts out your content, right? Doesn't just do that, but in return, you help them too put out content, right? So it's a sharing of that area, which we've kind of reinforced this a little bit before on that. The other thing is you reminders that you need to become a media company yourself. You are a media company. Your physical space should be doing that. And maybe you should be doing regular video blogging or video discussion about these important issues of our time and your opinion about how to solve them and through your products, right? And how you talk to children through your products, how you talk to adults through your products, through that. And do it in a very authentic way. This is very powerful right now because you have the ability to do that. And of course, what that also means is you're going to have to keep building your networks to do that, so you'll have greater viewership in it, right? You need to have the viewership in order to have the return from the viewership. So what most people fail to do is they put out great content, but they don't build network all the time to have people see it. So if 12 people see it, it's, it only has a certain impact, right? But so when you're not in this area of being paid for something, and I'm just really the way I work. When I'm not working specifically with people, I'm building at all times. I'm building social networks, I'm building business networks, I'm building at all times, because that is the space where you get access to people at all times. Never stop building. So your job is in that area, in those three areas, what I've just said, interconnect yourself into the influence space that's already having this dialogue. This dialogue is, because I'm watching, globally the dialogue going on. You're in a global discussion right now, not just a U.S. discussion. This is a global discussion right now. It's affecting international markets, international views, right? So you have an international opportunity, you have a regional and local opportunity, but those areas, you could be having a dialogue right now with somebody in England, okay? Right now about this. You could be interviewing them right now in Zoom about this, and then putting it around their product and your product, right? And that's very, very powerful because it begins to open up this dialogue that you have. You have your local, regional area, you have a national area, and you have a global area. Your dialogue is a very large dialogue right now.
All right, thank you so much.
I'm waiting to see if there was somebody because I heard some noise coming in. So I want to just kind of reinforce a couple things that maybe you've been hearing over and over again, right? And that is the use of the strategic partnership space, the use of the sharing economy, the use of social media, and the internet space in the sharing economy. The ability to think outside of your box and not stay within the box of the people you know, the people you always talk to. Because that space right there will get you the same results every time. You're already speaking, to the choir, right? You're speaking to people that already know and follow you and have that. So there's no new ideas. There's no new opportunities to that. There might be new collaborations. So that's why you reach out to me and say, let's talk about collaborating. But there's not always new eyes. So it's a hard way to make new markets through the same eyes all the time. So you have to be building new eyes at all times. So in the internet or social space, I'm always in a state of building. I'm never not building. I'm always in a state of building, right? So the way I build is kind of odd, right? So you have internet spaces that are different. And the social space in general was created out of one company, really, in general, in the United States. It was called PayPal. People have probably heard that company called PayPal, right? Now, PayPal really invented this idea, this abstract idea of using a credit card on the internet. They're one of the first companies to ever do it and popularize it. They became one of the richest companies in America. And then the people that came out of PayPal were called the PayPal Mafia up in Silicon Valley. And they invented YouTube. They invented Yelp. All right. They invented LinkedIn. And they are also Elon Musk and all of his three companies, SpaceX, all that area. All the money out of those companies came from that one area of people coming from PayPal. Now, PayPal was the ability to buy things on the internet. There would be no Expedias, no Amazon without it, right? So we're looking at one individual company that began to affect the world of communication and the world global commerce, right? And that's because of the invention of using a credit card on the internet, okay? So this area right here is where it's accelerating faster and faster and faster, right? So what do I mean by that is that you have to really think of yourself in the business realm of how you get access to business people. You get access to general people, public, your friends, everybody, but access to business people is where you make strategic partnerships, sponsorships, and money levels. The business people are thinking, how do I make more money? The creative people are thinking, how do I express myself? They're not always thinking about how I make money, right? This is where the interesting divide is. But the innovation space intersects them. The artistic and creative area is controlling innovation. It says, I'm not going to do things the way I always do them. I'm going to look at them in a different way. And then they end up changing the world because of that, because how things are seen isn't always the way it is. I mean, we used to think in the world that the world was flat. And there was a lot of people that thought the world was flat at one point in our world of knowledge. And then there's somebody that came along that said the world was round. And for some reason, they thought that guy was a big threat, telling them the world was round, right? Because that really shook people's heads, like, the world cannot be round. It's not real, right? So we're living in this time right now that the illusions are cracking down. There's stories, there's brand, and there's illusions. Most all branded products have an illusion behind them. The reason that you can see a collapse in a company and a rise in a new company is because they're based on somewhat an illusion and somewhat on value. How valuable is that product and service? That's why we buy it. right? But oftentimes what we buy things for is the emotional feeling we get from them. This explains fashion and the wealth of it, what you would buy a dress for $5,000 or $10,000, right? It explains that philosophy I've just said. It explains why you want to have something like that, an expensive vacation or a luxury car or these things in life. It explains what I've just described there. So mostly what the artistic community is and would be is selling two things, experiences and lifestyles, right? And how you sell your own lifestyle to people is a branding aspect of lifestyle branding. And the other side of it is a branding area that is specifically targeted to the emotional aspects of buying things. If you have a product or service, you have to put emotions to it. It's like what I've just said like that defies logic, right? Objects don't have emotions. They're not human beings, but they're sold emotionally. They're not sold rationally. They're sold through emotional stories and storytelling. Storytelling sells the world. Stories are the things that make movies, then make objects. So if you have it, you're an artist, you know, you're like, I'm telling my bio story. I'm telling the story of why I make art and what my art is about. That's the story that sells you, really. It sells you and what you have. If you're an author, it's the same way. So the carving of your storytelling or storytelling abilities is one of the most valuable skills you have, to tell your story and how well you tell your story. Because how well you tell your story is why people emotionally attach to what you have. So storytelling becomes very, very important in the whole marketing and selling space. To carve the story and then use the tools to put the story out. The tools are just tools. In the social space, a lot of people get area, when I say it, because I do advanced training in a lot of social spaces, but on a technical area, it is designed at a 6th grade level. Does everybody know that? Almost all the social spaces are designed about a 6th grade level, which is about 12 or 13 years old. Okay? Some of them less, some of them more. But that means they're designed to be universally used by everybody. That's why you can have a young person adapt very quickly to using Snapchat, WhatsApp, all these areas, and you're like, oh, I can't even keep up with these young people doing that, or the youth people doing that, because I have different people in different areas here, right? But what I've stated is a factual truth. They do not design those applications so that they're so difficult that only advanced, PhD people can use them. They design them for the masses. So once you can understand that, you can accept you can learn it. You can accept you can learn it and you can master it. If you can accept that as truth. And when I work with people, I prove that truth over and over again. I prove that truth because it's not as complicated as you think. It is designed for the mass market and the mass arena. It is designed for all. Otherwise, they can't make money from that. They want to get mass market. They want mass appeal. They want mass use. Okay, so that's why they're doing that. But carefully watch this. Watch this too. I'm saying that's going to be looking for this to be happening. I've been saying it for a long time. The merger is coming. The merger is coming. It's getting more obvious. Where the social spaces, the social media, the social spaces, and the e-commerce spaces are going to completely become one. Seamless. What does that mean? It means every time you go on Facebook, you can just buy right out of Facebook. It'll be hyperlinked right into an area where you just buy whatever product service you want right out of Facebook. And believe me, they're doing it because it's in their background already. They're doing it. It's the same thing that's happening with Instagram. You go on Instagram, you can buy whatever you want. Ever notice now that when you go onto Google and you search something, all at once there's something in your Facebook or something in there that said the exact same, a book that's exactly the same, the tour company exactly the same, the product's exactly the same. Well, of course they're doing that. They're tracing your habits and they're tracing what you're looking at and they're tracing what you're doing for an economic area of economic abundance. So they know the virtual space is coming and e-commerce space is coming. That's why they're tracing habits of how you're buying things and what you want to have. Okay, so that's being done by trace, and that's being done with this area called AI, which is called artificial intelligence, which is basically all the computers speaking to each other and speaking languages. And that's done globally. It's not just done here in the United States, it's done globally. And that area you have to realize is what I mean is that those huge companies are making money off of your habits and how you buy things and how you look at things. So why not reverse it on them a little bit? Why not do that? Why don't you become a small little Amazon? Why don't you become a small little eBay? Why don't you become a small little Facebook? All right. Why don't you do that? Because you're seeing them taking huge, huge profits of basically your data and your information.
Thank you, Shaun. So we're at about the 5-minute mark, but I'm not sure how flexible you are with time. I know you.
I have to total to 2 o'clock. Okay. Yeah, total to 2 o'clock.
So we'll take a couple more questions if that's okay with you. I know that Sheila, you had a question. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, Shaun. I know we're in a bit of a time crunch. Thank you for your time. I always learn a lot from you. I had a question again about pricing. I've always struggled to price my pieces. And a couple of days ago, a gallery owner reached out to me. And 6 months ago, I would have been thrilled, but the spiel was sort of, well, it's pandemic pricing. You know, things have changed. Luxury art's not selling. What's your rock bottom? And you know, I don't want to give it away, but I sort of felt like, you know, I should have gratitude for the approach, but at the same time, you know, is there such a thing as this pandemic pricing where now, you know, your work may not be worth what it was 6 months ago?
Okay, what I'm going to say to you right now is going to be really profound for a minute. What I think you should be doing is 2 types of agreements with those people. Okay, if they want to discount your work to sell through their formats, then I want you to have an agreement that they market your formats through their formats. Okay, here's what I'm saying. Okay, so if you want to sell something at a lower cost, you say, well, yeah, I would do that, but I want a complete social media agreement that for the next week you're going to promote all of my work through all of your channels and hyperlink that to my website. So you have they're trying to negotiate with you, and you're going to reverse negotiate with them, and then you're going to leverage their entire network to your website. Their entire network, right? So in the business perspective, what I've just said was this. So that's a power move when a person says, I own it and I'm a business person and I want to negotiate what you have. The reverse is to say, yeah, well, that's kind of a thing that would make their head shake in a minute, because they're like, I don't know the value of that. People have never approached me in that way. I don't know the value of that. So they probably might say, wow, that's a great idea. I'll probably do that. But let's say you do that and it turns out to get 3 more sales because of the 1 sell. Then you actually made more money than you would have if you discounted the money. So you have to understand that their audience, you have to then make an agreement for their audience. Now that's becoming an interesting scenario. What I just said is because when you also look at discounting right now in the middle of crisis, everybody's going to be discussing discounting or how to discount things. I'm not discussing that. I'm going to discuss how much I can leverage their networks if I discount for them. If I discount for them, how much can I leverage their networks, right? So I'm going to look over all their social media sites. They have Facebook, they have Twitter, they have YouTube, they have all these things. I will do, if I'm going to do a discount for you, I want to be promoted for the next 7 days in your spaces, on your website, I want to be promoted in all these areas as a discount value. Now, the reverse is saying, I don't want to discount. Right? The reverse is saying, I don't want to discount my services, right? But when you come at that, from that perspective I just meant, I mean, start making that part of your actual marketing, right? Like integrate that into actual marketing. The only way you're going to work with me and discount is that you're going to promote me for this period of time throughout your entire networks. That's the only way I'm going to work with you on discounting. If they don't agree to that, then you really have the wrong person. I would walk away on that. Right? I would walk away from that. Now, the other thing is how are you going to make agreement with them to get them more work? Because in the business space, what they are is kind of greedy. The business people are greedy. So they would rather have you bring in a partner. And I say, if I bring in a partner, we could both sell, different products together. How can I collaborate with somebody else to bring in something else to that gallery, right? And maybe that isn't just another artist, it's something that the gallery would need, right? And that's where your network becomes extremely valuable about what value you can provide to the gallery. Did that make sense? Oh, did I lose him? I think I'm not hearing everybody.
Yes, that made sense. Thank you. That was something
okay.
that I wouldn't even have thought to ask. I just, I'm always so grateful that, wow, somebody, a gallery wants my work. And I
Okay.
honestly, wouldn't even consider leveraging something like that. So I really appreciate it. That was amazing advice. Thank you.
All right.
I'm not hearing Susan. Susan's muted.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Tony, you're next if you'd like to go ahead and unmute yourself. Or I can do it for you. Go ahead, sir.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I hear you, Tony.
Terrific. Good afternoon, Shaun and Susanna. Well done, as always. Appreciate your continuing commitment of time, talent, and treasure for our arts community. I have 3 quick things. 1 is an announcement, 2 is a request for your help, and 3, an invitation. First, on 10 August, my 78th birthday, I'm going to launch my virtual empire, as you nickname it, with a free summit titled, working title, Creativity Habits for Fun and Prosperity. And then that'll be followed by a challenge, webinars, podcasts, coaching, and mastermind, and ebook. So the next is my request for your advice. Have you done any of these things or knows anyone who could advise me?
Okay. Michael went off the call, but you actually had an author here, Michael Hogan. I don't know if our friend from Ireland is left as well, but he has written 25 books and been on Amazon for 10 years. He's a great person to reach out for that ebook idea, Michael Hogan. And I think we'll look to have Michael reach out to you. You can also reach out to him on LinkedIn. You can reach out to him on Facebook, and he's got a big following. And I obviously assisted him, but I mean, he's the author. He knows how to sell everything on ebooks and any areas. I advised him on how to promote it, how to blow it up, but he knows the structures of it. And that area is what I mean, is that as soon as you're talking to somebody, you need to be reaching out specifically to other authors right now that are gifted authors willing to talk to you about the ebook space or how they sell their books, on there. So maybe also making a network or support network of 4 or 5 of those authors and start promoting those authors, like we said, right? Start promoting those authors in return for getting that kind of guidance from them, But I think authors are very giving people. They'd be glad to tell you.
Terrific. And then finally, an open invitation. I posted it in the chat. So if you or anyone you can refer has an interest in being a guest on the summit or attend the summit, please let me know.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was awesome.
Thank you, Tony. Do we have any other questions or comments? This is last sort of chance, if you haven't spoken up yet, to get your questions answered. Otherwise, we'll start to wrap up. Let's see. I don't have any other questions coming in. I hope this was helpful to you. This has been, I every single time that I meet with Shaun, whether on the phone, in person, whether we do a workshop, I always have an epiphany of some sort. It always happens every time. So I hope that happened for you as well. And yeah, I'm getting lots of comments that this was very, very helpful. So we'll send out a small survey. We'd appreciate it if you could respond to it. I will start to close off. I just wanted to say that, I hope this experience provided you with the tools and resources necessary to help you thrive during this uncertain time. Please stay safe out there, everybody. Stay inspired. Never stop creating. And remember that in times of crisis, humanity looks to the arts to bring them peace. So right now, more than ever, you are doing very important work, and don't forget that. Thank you for all that you do. We don't know what the next few months will bring, but as an organization dedicated to advancing the creative industries, Vanguard Culture will be here for you along the way. So just follow us on social media at Vanguard Culture, at Culturally Savvy, or visit vanguardculture.org to be a part of our season. And don't forget to go on LinkedIn and connect with us and Mr. Shaun Cassidy as well. Thank you again for being creative and keeping the world inspired. And thank you, Shaun, for being a part of our advisory board and being such a great supporter of the arts in San Diego.
I wish all of you peace, happiness in this time, and health for all your families.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.